Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s horizon, staring at the massive structure floating in space ahead of them. It was unlike anything he had seen in his 20 years of deep space exploration. The thing was huge, maybe 10 miles. Across, made of what looked like crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. It spun slowly around a dead star that had burned out millions of years ago. How long has it been there? Jake asked his science officer. Dr. Lisa Thompson looked up from her scanner. Based on the radiation patterns, I would say at least 50,000 years, maybe longer. The materials are not from any known source in this system. Jake rubbed his chin. In all his years exploring the galaxy, humans had never found proof of intelligent alien life. They had found planets that could support life, and even some simple creatures, but nothing that built cities or flew ships. This was the first real sign that other thinking beings had existed in the galaxy. "Can we get closer?" Jake asked. "Yes." "Sir, the structure is not giving off any dangerous energy." "It seems to be in some kind of sleep mode," Lisa said. Jake nodded to his pilot. "Take us in, nice and slow." The horizon moved closer to the crystal structure. As they got near, Jake could see that it was not solid. There were openings and passages inside, like it was built to be explored. Strange symbols covered the outside surface, glowing faintly in patterns that seemed to move and change. Commander Ryan Davis, the ship's military officer, stepped up beside Jake. "Sir, I think we should be careful. We don't know what this thing is or who built it." "I understand your concerns, Ryan, but this could be the most important discovery in human history," Jake said. "Lisa, can you scan for any life signs?" Lisa worked at her station for several minutes. "No life signs, Captain. But I am reading massive data storage systems inside. This thing is like a giant computer or library." Dr. Amy Carter, the ship's language expert, looked excited. "Captain, if this is some kind of alien library, it could contain information about other civilizations. We might finally learn that we are not alone in the universe." Jake made his decision. "Prepare a shuttle team. Lisa, Amy, I want you both to come with me. Ryan, you too. We are going to take a look inside." An hour later, their small shuttle approached one of the openings in the crystal structure. The opening was large enough for their shuttle to fly through easily. As they entered, lights began to turn on automatically, as if the structure knew they were there. "It is responding to our presence," Amy said with wonder in her voice. They flew through corridors made of the same glowing crystal. The walls were covered with more symbols, thousands of them, maybe millions. Some areas opened up into huge rooms filled with floating crystal formations that pulsed with light. "I think those are data storage units," Lisa said. "Each one might contain more information than all the computers on Earth combined." Jake found a place where their shuttle could land safely. The 4 humans put on their spacesuits and stepped out into the alien structure. A moment their feet touched the crystal floor, the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. "It definitely knows we are here," Ryan said, his hand moving closer to his weapon. Amy walked up to one of the walls and placed her hand on it. The symbols near her hand began to pulse faster. "I think it is trying to communicate with us." Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from the wall and surrounded Amy. Jake and Ryan moved to help her, but she held up her hand. "Wait, it is not hurting me. I think it is scanning me, learning about us." The light faded, and Amy stepped back from the wall. The symbols on the walls began to change, shifting into new patterns. Then, amazingly, some of them began to look like human letters and numbers. "It learned our language just from scanning." "You?" Jake asked. "It appears so. Look, there are words forming on the wall." Jake could see English words appearing among the alien symbols. The words said, "Welcome, children of the third world. We are the Zephyrians. This is our final gift to the galaxy. Lisa was already taking readings with her scanner. Captain, this is incredible. The structure contains the complete history of an entire civilization. They called themselves the Zephyrians, and they were spacefaring for over 100,000 years. What happened to them? Jake asked. Amy was still interacting with the wall display. More words appeared. We chose to end our existence rather than face the awakening of the sleepers. Our knowledge remains for those who come after. Sleepers? What does that mean? Ryan asked. The display changed, showing star maps and images of different worlds. Amy read the text that appeared. Every civilization that reaches the stars finds the same truth. Every race that came before us left the same warning. The third planet of the Sol system holds those who must never wake. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Sol system was the old name for Earth's solar system. The third planet was Earth. Show us these warnings, Amy said to the display. The crystal walls around them lit up with thousands of different symbols and languages. As they watched, the alien computer translated them one by one into English. Each message was different, but they all said the same basic thing. Beware the sleepers of the third world. The dreamers of Sol must never wake. Those who pretend peace will bring the end of all. Earth sleeps, but its dreams are of conquest. Lisa was recording everything, her face pale with shock. Captain, I am reading records from over 800 different civilizations. Some of these warnings are over 2 million years old. Jake stared at the messages covering the walls. Every alien race that had ever existed in the galaxy had left a warning about Earth, about humanity. This cannot be right, Ryan said. Humans are peaceful explorers. We have never conquered anyone. Amy was accessing more of the Zephyrian records. According to this, the warnings do not speak of what humans have done, but what they will do. Every civilization that left these messages believed that something on Earth would eventually wake up and destroy all life in the galaxy. That is impossible, Jake said. Humans evolved on Earth. We have proof of our evolution, our history. We built our first cities only 10,000 years ago. The display flickered, and new text appeared. The architects left no trace of their true nature. They sleep between the stars, dreaming of peace until the time comes for harvest. Earth is their final resting place. Architects? Who are the architects? Lisa asked, but before the display could answer, Ryan's communication device buzzed with an emergency signal. Captain, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up an approaching ship. It is not human design. Jake looked at his team. They had found proof that humans were not alone in the universe, but that proof came with warnings that made no sense. Every dead civilization in the galaxy had feared Earth, and now something was coming to find them. We need to get back to the ship, Jake said. Lisa, Amy, can you download what we have learned so far? Already working on it, sir, Lisa said. But Captain, there are petabytes of data here. It will take days to copy everything. Jake made a quick decision. Copy what you can. We will come back later if possible. Right now, we need to find out who is coming to visit us. As they hurried back to their shuttle, Amy looked back at the crystal walls, still glowing with their warnings about Earth. She wondered what the approaching aliens would tell them about humanity's true nature. The warnings from 800 dead civilizations could not all be wrong, but if they were right, then everything humans believed about themselves was a lie. The shuttle lifted off from the ancient Zephyrian archive, carrying 4 humans who had just learned that their entire species might be the most feared thing in the galaxy. Behind them, the crystal structure continued to glow with its warnings, waiting for the next visitors to discover the truth about the sleepers of Earth. The alien ship appeared on the horizon's main screen as a graceful, flowing structure that looked more grown than built. It was about the same size as their own vessel, but its hull seemed to shift and change color like liquid metal. Strange. Fins and extensions moved slowly along its sides, as if the ship were alive. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the alien vessel approach. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his voice calm. "Lisa, any weapon signatures?" Dr. Lisa Thompson worked at her science station, her fingers flying over controls. "No weapons that I can detect, Captain. But the ship's technology is so advanced that I cannot be sure. It is using energy patterns I have never seen before." Commander Ryan Davis had his hand on the ship's defensive systems. "Sir, recommend we raise shields and prepare for combat. We do not know what these aliens want." "Hold on that order, Ryan," Jake said. "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. Amy, are you getting any communication attempts?" Dr. Amy Carter was listening to multiple frequencies through her headset. "Yes, Captain. They are sending a signal on multiple bands. It is not like any language I know, but it sounds organized, like they are trying to talk to us." Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment humans had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with an alien species. "Put me on all channels, Amy. Let me try to communicate with them." Amy nodded and opened the communication system. Jake spoke slowly and clearly. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration ship Horizon. We come in peace and wish to communicate with you." For several minutes there was no response. Then Amy's eyes went wide. "Captain, they are responding. And they are speaking English." A new voice came through the ship's speakers. It was strange, with sounds that seemed to come from multiple sources at once, but the words were clear. "Greetings, Captain Morrison. I am Ambassador Kethfer of the Galactic Remnant Coalition. We have been waiting for your people to find the Zephyrian Archive." Jake exchanged looks with his crew. "You know about the Archive? And you speak our language?" "We have been studying your species for many years, Captain. We learned your languages and your ways. We knew this day would come when you would find the warnings, and we would need to speak with you. Can we meet face to face?" Jake asked. "If you wish. I will come to your ship alone as a sign of good faith. But I must warn you, Captain Morrison, my appearance may be frightening to your people. We are very different from humans." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa nodded, Amy looked excited, and Ryan still seemed worried. "We will welcome you aboard, Ambassador. We are prepared for you to look different from us." An hour later, Jake and his senior officers waited in the Horizon's main meeting room. They had set up special air filters and adjusted the lighting, not knowing what the alien might need. When the door opened, they got their first look at a living alien being. Ambassador Kethfer was unlike anything they had imagined. The alien stood about 7 feet tall, on 6 legs that moved with perfect coordination. Its body was covered in what looked like living crystal, similar to the Zephyrian Archive, but more colorful. Where a human would have a head, Kethfer had a cluster of glowing organs that pulsed with different colors as it moved. "Please do not be afraid," Kethfer said. Its voice came from several places on its body at once. "I know I look strange to you, but I mean no harm." Jake stepped forward, trying to hide his amazement. "Welcome aboard the Horizon, Ambassador. We are honored to meet you." Kethfer's crystal body shifted colors, from blue to green to gold. "Thank you, Captain. I wish this meeting could be under better circumstances, but time is growing short." "Short for what?" Lisa asked. Kethfer turned toward her, and she could see her reflection in its crystal surface. "Short for your people to understand what they truly are before it is too late." Amy leaned forward. "The warnings in the archive mention sleepers and architects. What do those words mean?" "Sit, please," Kethfer said. "This story is long and difficult to hear." They all took seats around the table. Kethfer remained standing, its 6 legs adjusting to keep it perfectly balanced. The Galactic Remnant Coalition represents the last survivors of what was once a galaxy full of life, Kethver began. 2 million years ago, there were tens of thousands of intelligent species among the stars. Great civilizations that built wonders your people cannot imagine. Trade routes that connected every corner of the galaxy. Art, science, and philosophy that reached heights no single species could achieve alone. What happened to them? Jake asked. Kethver's body dimmed to a deep blue color. They were harvested. Every few 100,000 years, the same thing happens. Civilizations reach a certain level of development, and then they vanish. Not destroyed by war or disaster, but simply gone. No trace left behind except their warnings about the 3rd planet in the Sol system. Ryan shifted in his chair. You are saying that something from Earth destroyed entire civilizations? Not from Earth, Commander Davis. Something that sleeps on Earth. The architects. Lisa pulled out her scanner and began recording. Tell us about these architects. They are a nomadic species that moves between worlds in cycles lasting hundreds of thousands of years. They find suitable planets, usually ones with developing life, and they go into a deep sleep. While they sleep, they influence the evolution of local species, shaping them for their own purposes. Amy felt a chill. Shaping them how? They create servants. Beings that look and act like the local species, but carry the architect's genetic programming. These servants live normal lives, build civilizations, and explore space. But they are not truly alive in the way you understand life. They are tools waiting for the architects to wake and use them. Jake stood up from his chair. Are you saying that humans are not real? That we are some kind of artificial creation? Kethver's body shifted to a worried red color. I am saying that humans appeared on Earth approximately 300,000 years ago. This matches exactly with the time of the last great culling, when the previous galactic civilization was harvested. But we have fossil records, Lisa protested. Evidence of human evolution going back millions of years. The architects are masters of deception, Dr. Thompson. They can create any evidence they need. They have done this on hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. The pattern is always the same. Ryan was getting angry. Even if what you say is true, humans have never harvested anyone. We explore, we learn, we try to help other species when we find them. Because you are still asleep, Kethver said sadly. The architects programmed their servants to be peaceful explorers until the time comes for awakening. Then their true nature emerges. Amy was thinking hard. How do you know all this? How did your people survive? We are the remnants of species that escaped the last culling by hiding at the edge of the galaxy. We have spent 300,000 years studying the architects, waiting for the signs that they are about to wake again. What signs? Jake asked. Rapid technological advancement. Expansion into space. The discovery of the warnings left by previous civilizations. All of these things indicate that the servants are approaching readiness for their master's awakening. Lisa looked at her readings. Ambassador, our records show that humans have had incredibly fast technological growth in the last few centuries. We went from simple tools to space travel in just a few thousand years. Exactly. And now you have found the Zephyrian archive. The next step in the pattern is first contact with the surviving species. That is why I'm here. Jake felt like the world was spinning around him. What happens next? That depends on your people, Captain Morrison. In the past, the servants have always chosen to awaken their masters when faced with the truth. They believe it is their destiny to help the architects harvest the galaxy's resources and move on to the next one. And if we refuse? Ryan asked. Kethver's body went completely dark for a moment. Then your people will fight among themselves. Some will want to wake the architects, believing it is their purpose. Others will resist. The internal conflict usually leads to the awakening anyway, as different factions try to gain advantage over each other. Amy was taking notes frantically. Is there any way to avoid this? Any way for humans to choose a different path? In all our recorded history, no servant species has ever chosen differently. But Kethfer paused. Your people have shown some unusual traits. Your art, your music, your stories about choosing your own destiny. These things are not typical of architect servants. Jake looked at his crew, then back at Kethfer. What do you need from us? We need you to return to Earth and tell your leaders what you have learned. We need humanity to make a choice while they still can. The awakening signs are accelerating. We estimate you have perhaps 50 years before the process becomes irreversible. Lisa was studying her scanner readings. Ambassador, can you show us proof of what you are saying? Something that will convince our leaders that this is real? Kethfer moved to the center of the room. Its body began to glow brighter, and suddenly the air above it filled with images. They saw vast space battles, worlds being stripped of all life, and massive ships carrying away the resources of entire civilizations. This is what the architects do when they wake, Kethfer said. They turn their servants into perfect soldiers and workers. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, but it felt like 3 years to Captain Jake Morrison. Every day, he and his crew studied the data that Ambassador Kethfer had given them. The more they learned, the more worried they became. Dr. Lisa Thompson spent her time analyzing genetic samples from the Coalition's database. She compared them to human DNA patterns and found things that made her hands shake as she worked. Dr. Amy Carter translated thousands of warnings from extinct civilizations, each one saying the same terrifying thing about Earth and its sleeping inhabitants. When the horizon finally reached Earth's solar system, Jake called his crew together in the meeting room. They all looked tired and scared. What do we tell Earth? Command? Jake asked. How do we explain that everything humans believe about themselves might be wrong? Lisa pushed a data pad across the table. I have been running genetic tests for weeks, Captain. Human DNA contains sequences that do not match any known Earth species. These sequences are inactive now, but they appear to be some kind of activation. Code. Activation code for what? Commander Ryan Davis asked. Enhanced physical abilities, increased intelligence, and something else. Something that looks like programming for following complex orders without question. Amy looked up from her own reports. I have been studying the language patterns in the warnings. Every extinct civilization mentions the same thing. The sleepers of Earth dream of peace, but when they wake, they become perfect soldiers for something. Called the harvest. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. We need to present this information carefully. If we just tell Earth Command that humans might be alien puppets, they will think we have lost our minds. Ryan was looking out the window at Earth, blue and beautiful in the distance. What if Kethfer is lying? What if this is some kind of alien trick to make humans afraid of their own power? I thought about that too, Lisa said. But the evidence is too strong. I found the same genetic markers in my own DNA and in all of yours. Whatever we are not completely natural. The Horizon docked at Earth Station 1 2 days later. Jake and his team were immediately called to a meeting with Admiral Susan Blake, the head of Earth's first contact protocols. Admiral Blake was a serious woman in her 50s who had spent her entire career preparing for the day humans would meet aliens. Captain Morrison, Admiral Blake said as they entered her office, your initial report was quite disturbing. Are you telling me that you made contact with hostile aliens who are threatening Earth? Jake sat down across from her. No, Admiral. The aliens we met are not hostile. But the information they gave us suggests that Earth itself might be a threat to the galaxy. Admiral Blake frowned. Explain that statement, Captain. For the next 2 hours, Jake and his team presented everything they had learned. They showed the genetic evidence, the warnings from extinct civilizations, and the Coalition's records of previous galactic harvests. Admiral Blake listened without saying a word, but her face grew more concerned with each piece of evidence. "This is impossible," Admiral Blake finally said. "Humans have a complete evolutionary history on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years." Dr. Lisa Thompson opened her datapad. "Admiral, I have been studying those records since we returned. Many of the fossils that show human evolution have inconsistencies. Carbon dating that does not match the geological layers. They were found in genetic markers that appear and disappear without explanation. Are you suggesting that our entire archaeological record has been faked?" "Not faked, Admiral. Modified. The Coalition believes that the architects can manipulate matter at the atomic level. They could create any fossil record they wanted." "Admiral." Blake stood up and walked to her window, looking out at Earth. "Even if what you are saying is true, Captain, what do you expect me to do about it? Tell the entire human race that they are not real?" Amy spoke up. "Admiral, the Coalition is not asking us to do anything except be aware of what we might become. They want humans to make a choice while we still can." "What choice?" Jake pulled out another datapad. "According to their records, the awakening process has already begun. Humans are advancing technologically faster than any natural species should. We went from horse-drawn carriages to space travel in less than 200 years. That just shows human intelligence and determination," Admiral Blake said. "Or it shows that we are following our programming," Lisa replied. "Admiral, I have been studying reports from around Earth. There are increasing numbers of people having strange dreams. Dreams about flying among the stars and conquering other worlds. Medical centers are reporting unusual changes in brain chemistry among certain population groups." Admiral Blake turned back to face them. "What kind of changes?" "Increased activity in areas of the brain that control aggression and dominance. Decreased activity in areas that control empathy and independent thinking." Ryan, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, finally spoke. "Admiral, there is something else. The Coalition told us about someone called Elder Zixith. This being is over 400,000 years old and actually witnessed the last harvest. The Coalition wants to bring Elder Zixith to Earth to speak with our leaders directly." Admiral Blake sat back down heavily in her chair. "You want me to authorize an ancient alien to come to Earth and tell us that we are going to destroy the galaxy? We want you to listen to the evidence and make an informed decision," Jake said. "Admiral, if the Coalition is right, then humanity has maybe 50 years before the awakening becomes irreversible. After that, we become something else entirely." Admiral Blake was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally, she looked up at them. "I am going to authorize a full investigation. We will bring in geneticists, archaeologists, and behavioral experts. If there is any truth to what you are saying, we need to know. What about Elder Zixith?" Amy asked. "I will consider it. But first, I want our own scientists to verify your findings." 2 weeks later, Dr. Paul Rodriguez, Earth's leading geneticist, presented his findings to a secret committee of government and military leaders. Jake and his crew were there to answer questions about their discovery. "The genetic evidence is undeniable," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Human DNA contains artificial sequences that appear to be dormant control mechanisms. These sequences are not present in any other Earth species, not even our closest evolutionary relatives." Colonel Mary Johnson, a military analyst, raised her hand. "Dr. Rodriguez, could these sequences have developed naturally through evolution?" "No, Colonel. The sequences are too complex and too precisely designed. They appear to be engineered by an intelligence far superior to our own." Admiral Blake looked around the room at the worried faces of Earth's leaders. What about the archaeological evidence? Have we found proof that our history has been manipulated? Dr. Helen Ross, an archaeologist who had been brought in to study the question, stood up. I have been examining key fossil sites around the world. Many of the most important human evolutionary fossils show signs of artificial aging and placement. It appears that someone with advanced technology created evidence of human evolution and buried it for us to find. But why? Asked General Frank Miller, the head of Earth's defense forces. Why create fake humans at all? Jake decided to answer. According to the Coalition, the architects use servant species as tools. We explore the galaxy, map it, identify resources and other species. When the architects wake up, they use us to harvest everything of value. And then what happens to us? Colonel Johnson asked. Amy looked down at her notes. According to Elder Zixif's testimony, the servant species become completely controlled. They lose all individual will and become extensions of the architects' minds. They are more than human in terms of abilities, but less than human in terms of consciousness. General Miller leaned forward. What kind of abilities? Lisa answered. This time, enhanced strength, speed, and intelligence. Rapid understanding of advanced technology. Perfect coordination with other awakened humans. And complete obedience to the architect's commands. That actually sounds useful, General Miller said. If humans could have those abilities while keeping our free will, we would be the most powerful species in the galaxy. Admiral Blake looked worried. General, the Coalition was very clear about this. The abilities come with the loss of free will. You cannot have one without the other. Dr. Rodriguez raised his hand. Admiral, I have been studying the brain chemistry changes that Dr. Thompson mentioned. The patterns are accelerating. I estimate that within 10 years, a significant portion of the human population will begin showing signs of the awakening process. What signs? Admiral Blake asked. Decreased empathy, increased aggression, improved physical coordination, and most importantly, a strong desire to expand human control over other species and resources. Colonel Johnson stood up. Are you telling us that humans are going to turn into galactic conquerors, whether we want to or not? That appears to be our programming. Yes. Dr. Rodriguez said. The room fell silent as everyone thought about what they had heard. Finally, Admiral Blake spoke again. I am authorizing contact with Elder Zixif. We need to hear from someone who actually witnessed what we might become. Jake felt a mix of relief and fear. Relief that Earth's leaders were taking the threat seriously. Elder Zixif arrived at Earth Station, one in a ship that seemed to be made of living metal and crystal. The ancient being was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It stood 12 feet tall, with a body that looked like flowing water maid. Solid, its skin changed colors constantly, and it had no face that humans could recognize. Just a smooth surface that somehow projected thoughts directly into their minds. Captain Jake Morrison and Admiral Susan Blake waited in the station's largest meeting room, along with Earth's top scientists and military leaders. When Elder Zixif entered, the temperature in the room dropped several degrees, and everyone felt a strange pressure in their minds. I greet you, children of the architects, Elder Zixif said, though its voice seemed to come from inside their heads rather than from any mouth. I have lived for 400,000 years, and I have seen this moment many times before. Admiral Blake tried to maintain her composure. Elder Zixif, we appreciate you coming to speak with us. We need to understand what humanity is facing. You face the same choice that 47 other servant species have faced. All of them chose wrongly. Dr. Paul Rodriguez, who had been studying human genetics, leaned forward. Elder, can you tell us exactly what happens during the awakening process? Elder Zixif's body shifted to a deep red color. It begins slowly. as it has already begun with your species. The genetic programming starts to activate. Humans begin to have dreams of conquest. They become more aggressive, more focused on dominance and control. They also become stronger, faster, and smarter. But that sounds like evolution, General Frank Miller said. Humans becoming better versions of themselves. No, General. Evolution creates diversity and independent thought. The awakening creates uniformity and obedience. Watch. Elder Zixith projected images directly into their minds. They saw humans, but not as they were now. These humans were taller, stronger, and moved with perfect coordination. Their eyes glowed with an inner light, and they worked together without speaking, as if they shared a single mind. These are awakened servants from the last harvest, Elder Zixith explained. They believed they were becoming superior beings. They did not realize they were becoming tools. Dr. Karen White, a neuroscientist who had been studying the brain, changes in humans, asked, "Elder, is the process reversible? Can awakened humans return to their normal state? Once the process completes, no. The individual consciousness is replaced by connection to the architect collective. But your species has not reached that point yet." Admiral Blake felt a chill. "How much time do we have?" "Based on the patterns I observe in your population, perhaps 10 of your years. The process is accelerating faster than usual." Jake had been thinking about something. "Elder, you said all previous servant species chose." "Wrongly. What choice did they make?" Elder Zixith's body turned a sad blue color. They chose to embrace the awakening. They believed it was their destiny to become something greater. They did not understand that greatness without choice is not greatness at all. What would happen if we chose differently? Colonel Mary Johnson asked, "No species has ever chosen differently. But theoretically, you could resist the awakening. You could refuse to activate the genetic programming. You could choose to remain as you are." General Miller stood up. "What if we wanted to use the awakening abilities, but keep our free will? Could we have both?" "Impossible. The abilities and the control system are linked. One cannot exist without the other." Dr. Rodriguez had been taking notes. "Elder, are you saying that some humans are already beginning to awaken?" "Yes. Your governments have been tracking them, though they do not yet understand what they are seeing." Admiral Blake looked confused. "What do you mean?" Elder Zixith projected new images into their minds. They saw news reports from around Earth, people performing impossible physical feats, humans solving complex problems that should have taken teams of experts, groups of people working together with perfect coordination, as if they could read each other's minds. These early awakened humans are appearing in every major population center on Earth, Elder Zixith explained. They do not yet realize what they are becoming. Dr. White was studying the data on her tablet. "The brain scans we have been taking show that people with these abilities have increased activity in areas associated with aggression and decreased activity in areas associated with independent thought. Exactly as the programming intends," Elder Zixith said. "The awakened humans become perfect soldiers and workers. They feel no doubt, no fear, no compassion for their enemies. They exist only to serve the architects." Jake felt sick. "Elder, where are the architects now? Are they still sleeping?" "They sleep beneath your planet's surface, in chambers that your people have not yet discovered. But they are beginning to stir. The increasing number of awakened humans is sending signals that wake them slowly." General Miller was getting agitated. "If we know where they are, why do we not just destroy them while they sleep?" Elder Zixith's body flashed bright red. "Because they are not truly separate from you. The architects and their servants are connected at a level deeper than your science understands. If you attack the architects, every human on Earth will feel it. The awakening process will accelerate dramatically. So we are trapped, Admiral Blake said quietly. Previous species believed so. But your species has shown some unusual characteristics. Amy Carter, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. What kind of characteristics? Your art, your music, your stories. Most servant species create only functional things. You create beauty for its own sake. You tell stories about choosing your own destiny, about rebelling against control. These are not typical servant behaviors. Dr. Rodriguez looked hopeful. Does that mean we might be able to resist the programming? It means you might be able to choose differently than previous species. But the choice must be made soon, and it must be made by your entire species. Jake was thinking hard. Elder, what exactly would happen if we chose to resist the awakening? You would remain as you are now, limited in abilities compared to awakened servants, but free to make your own choices. You would need to find ways to suppress the genetic programming in your population. And if we chose to embrace the awakening, you would become the most powerful force in the galaxy. You would have abilities that allow you to travel between stars as easily as walking between rooms. You would understand technologies that seem like magic to you now, but you would no longer be truly alive. Colonel Johnson had a practical question. Elder, how many humans are already showing signs of awakening? Our scans indicate approximately 100,000 across your planet. A number is growing exponentially. Admiral Blake felt the weight of the entire human species on her shoulders. What happens to those who have already begun awakening? Can they be saved? The early stages can be reversed, but it requires the willing cooperation of the affected individuals. They must choose to resist the programming, even though it offers them incredible power. Dr. White was looking at her latest brain scans. Admiral, we have been monitoring several individuals who show awakening signs. They report feeling stronger, smarter, and more confident than ever before. They also report feeling less concerned about the opinions and welfare of others. The loss of empathy is one of the first signs, Elder Zixith confirmed. The awakened believe they are becoming superior, but they are actually becoming less human. General Miller was still focused on the military aspects. Elder, if some humans choose to awaken and others choose to resist, what happens? Civil war. The awakened will see the unawakened as obstacles to their destiny. They will try to force the awakening on everyone, believing they are helping their species reach its potential. Jake remembered something from the Coalition's records. Elder, you mentioned that the awakening process is accelerating faster than usual. Why? Your species has achieved space travel and advanced technology more quickly than previous servants. This sends stronger signals to the sleeping architects. They are responding by accelerating the awakening process. Dr. Rodriguez was studying his genetic data. Elder, I have been analyzing the DNA sequences that control the awakening. They appear to be designed to activate when humans reach a certain level of technological and social development. Correct. The architects programmed their servants to awaken when they became useful tools for galactic conquest. Admiral Blake looked around the room at her advisors. So we have a choice. Remain human and limited, or become powerful and controlled. There is a third option, Elder Zixith said quietly. Everyone leaned forward. What option? Jake asked. Your species could choose to become something new. Not fully awakened servants, but not unchanged humans either. You could try to use some of the awakening abilities while retaining your free will. But you said that was impossible, General Miller protested. I said it had never been done. Your species has already shown that it can do things that other servant species could not. Perhaps you can find a way to break the pattern. Dr. White was excited. Elder, if we could partially awaken some humans while keeping others completely human, we might be able to create a balance. It would be extremely dangerous. The partially awakened would be constantly fighting against their programming. Many would fail and become fully awakened. 2 years had passed since Elder Zixith's warning, and Earth was a world divided. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the newly built Guardian Station, watching reports come in from around the planet. The awakening was spreading. Faster than anyone had predicted. Dr. Lisa Thompson approached him with the latest data. Jake, we now have over 1 million awakened humans worldwide. They are organizing themselves into groups and demanding that all humans undergo the awakening process. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. What about the resistance movement? Dr. Helen Ross has about 2 million people following her teachings about choosing our own path. But the awakened humans are becoming more aggressive. There have been conflicts in 12 major cities this week. Jake looked at the main screen, which showed Commander Steve Parker giving a speech to thousands of awakened humans in New York. Parker had been one of the first to undergo the awakening voluntarily, believing it was humanity's destiny to become something greater. My fellow humans, Parker was saying, his voice carrying easily across the crowd without any amplification. We have been given a gift, the ability to become more than we ever dreamed possible. Why do some of us refuse this gift? Why do they choose to remain weak when they could become strong? The crowd of awakened humans cheered. Jake could see that they moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all part of the same organism. Their eyes glowed with a soft inner light, and they seemed to communicate without speaking. Dr. Amy Carter joined Jake and Lisa at the command station. The awakened humans are not just stronger and smarter, she reported. They are developing new abilities every day. Some can move objects with their minds. Others can communicate across vast distances without any technology. What about their personalities? Jake asked. Amy looked worried. That is the problem. They are losing what made them human. They show no empathy for unawakened humans. They see us as obstacles to overcome or problems to solve. On the screen, Commander Parker continued his speech. The unawakened humans do not understand what they are rejecting. They think they are choosing freedom, but they are choosing weakness. They think they are choosing individuality, but they are choosing insignificance. Jake turned away from the screen. Any word from Dr. Ross and her group? Lisa nodded. She has been working with Dr. Paul Rodriguez on something they call the third path. They think they have found a way to give humans some awakening abilities while keeping their free will. How? They are using a combination of genetic therapy and mental training. The idea is to activate only part of the awakening sequence while blocking the control programming. Amy looked skeptical. Elder Zixith said that was extremely dangerous. The test subjects could lose their minds from the internal conflict. Dr. Ross says they have had some success, Lisa replied. About 30% of the test subjects have gained enhanced abilities without losing their humanity. And the other 70%? Lisa's face fell. 20% went completely insane. 50% became fully awakened despite the blocking attempts. Jake felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. What about Admiral Blake and Earth Command? They are trying to stay neutral, but it is getting harder. The awakened. Humans are demanding access to Earth's military technology. They say they need it to protect humanity from alien threats. What alien threats? Jake asked. Amy pulled up another report. Ambassador Kethvar and the Coalition have been detecting massive energy signatures from deep underground. The sleeping architects are beginning to wake up. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. How long do we have? According to Elder Zixith, maybe 6 months before the first architect awakens completely. On the main screen, Commander Parker's speech was reaching its climax. The time for choice is ending, he declared. Soon, the masters will wake, and they will see what we have become. If we are still divided, If some of us remain unawakened, they will see us as failures. They will replace us with new servants. The crowd of awakened humans began chanting in perfect unison. Awaken all, unite all, serve the greater purpose. Jake turned to his team. Get me a secure channel to Dr. Ross. A few minutes later, Dr. Helen Ross appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted, but determined. She was speaking from her hidden laboratory in the Rocky Mountains, where she and her followers had been working on the Third Path project. Jake, good to see you, Dr. Ross said. I assume you saw Parker's speech. Yes. Helen, we need to know if your third path is ready. The architects are waking up, and the awakened humans are getting more aggressive every day. Dr. Ross sighed. We have made progress, but it is not perfect. The partial awakening process works, but it requires incredible mental discipline. Most people cannot handle the constant struggle between their human nature and the awakening programming. What? About those who can handle it? They gain enhanced physical and mental abilities, but they remain empathetic and independent. They can resist the call of the collective consciousness that controls the fully awakened. Jake made a decision. Helen, I want to try it. Jake, no, Lisa protested. It is too dangerous. Someone has to take the risk, Jake said. If the third path works, we need leaders who can match the awakened humans' inability while keeping their humanity. Dr. Ross looked concerned. Jake, even if you survive the process, you would be fighting an internal battle for the rest of your life. The awakening programming never stops trying to take control. I understand the risks. 3 days later, Jake lay on a medical table in Dr. Ross's laboratory. Dr. Rodriguez was monitoring his vital signs while Dr. Ross prepared the genetic therapy injection. Remember, Jake, Dr. Ross said, once we start this process, you will feel the awakening programming trying to take control of your mind. You must constantly choose to remain human. If you stop fighting, even for a moment, you will become like Parker and the others. Jake nodded. I am ready. The injection felt like fire in his veins. Within minutes, Jake could feel his body changing. His muscles became stronger, his senses sharper, his mind clearer. But along with the improvements came something else. A voice in his head that whispered about the glory of serving the architects, about the weakness of unawakened humans, about the need to control and dominate. Fight it, Jake, Dr. Ross urged. Remember who you are. Remember what you are fighting for. Jake gritted his teeth and focused on his memories of humanity at its best. The courage of explorers, the compassion of healers, the creativity of artists. He held on to these thoughts as the awakening programming tried to wash them away. Hours passed. Jake's body temperature spiked, then dropped. His brain activity showed patterns that Dr. Rodriguez had never seen before. But Jake kept fighting, kept choosing to remain human. Finally, the process stabilized. Jake opened his eyes and sat up. He felt incredible. His body was stronger than ever. His mind was processing information at superhuman speed, and he could sense things that had been invisible to him before. But most importantly, he still felt compassion for others. He still valued freedom and choice. He was still human. It worked, Dr. Ross said with amazement. Jake, how do you feel? Different, but still me, Jake replied. I can feel the programming trying to influence me, but I can resist it. Over the next few months, Jake and a small group of other successful third path candidates began working to spread their solution. It was not easy. Many people were too afraid to try the risky procedure. Others lacked the mental strength to resist the awakening programming dot, but slowly, a third faction began to form. Humans who had gained some of the awakening abilities, while keeping their free will. They called themselves the Guardians. The crisis came when the first architect began to wake beneath the Pacific Ocean. Massive earthquakes shook the region, as something enormous stirred in the deep ocean trenches. Commander. Parker and his awakened humans felt the call immediately. They began gathering at sites around the world, preparing to serve their returning masters. But the Guardians, led by Jake, had other plans. "We will not serve," Jake announced in a broadcast to all of humanity. "We will not conquer. We will choose our own path." The final battle was not fought with weapons, but with will. As the first architect emerged from its underwater chamber, it expected to find obedient servants ready to begin the harvest. Instead, it found humanity divided into 3 groups. The awakened humans, led by Parker, offered themselves as servants. The unawakened humans, led by Dr. Ross, offered resistance. But it was the Guardians who offered something new. "We will serve the galaxy," Jake told the ancient architect, "but not as conquerors. We will be protectors. We will use our abilities to help other species grow and thrive, not to harvest them." The architect, ancient beyond measure, paused to consider this unprecedented offer. For the first time in millions of years, a servant species was proposing to rewrite the fundamental purpose of their existence. After what felt like an eternity, the architect spoke, its voice echoing in the minds of every human on Earth. "This path has never been chosen before. It will be difficult. You will face constant temptation to return to the old ways. Are you certain this is what your species wants?" Jake looked around at his fellow Guardians, at Dr. Ross and her followers, even at Commander Parker and the awakened humans who were beginning to question their certainty.